What's good, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Black Professionals Project. My name is Kenton Hipsher. Hopefully you know by now. If you don't, our mission is to expose Black and Brown youth to careers via Black and Brown professionals like the one that we have here today. So without further ado, let me introduce you guys to my friend, my Indiana family, Mr. Devin Michael.
What's going on?
What's good, man? Thank you for coming onto the platform. I appreciate you for showing up and not only showing up, but sharing all this good knowledge with the people so that they can learn a little bit about what it's like being a boss.
Always a pleasure. And showing up early.
Facts. He was early. He was early this time. The first time he forgot, but the second time he was early. So you made up for it.
I forgot about that, actually. So, smart.
Hey, it's all good, man. It's all good. So tell the people what you do, man. What's your profession?
Yeah, so I'm a startup entrepreneur, co-founder of a company called Qualifi, which is a HR technology startup here in Indianapolis. We focus on the recruiting side of HR, which is talent acquisition and focusing on hiring a ton of people. So companies that are hiring 500 to 1,000 people a year, we're really targeting them with smaller teams, people that are really feeling a pain that they have a ton of candidates to get through and not enough time, not enough effectiveness, and not enough resource to get through them properly. So we provide them a tool that automates the phone interview, essentially. So in our platform, they just record the questions they want to ask candidates, send those candidates these invites via text or email, and then the candidates experience it like a normal phone interview. And so for both parties, it's easy and convenient, and you cut out a lot of the time spent on the, for lack of a better term, on the wasted time tasks, essentially. So email back and forth, setting up schedules and all that crap. We get rid of all that, and it's all just easier.
Cool. That's great, man. That's a really useful tool. I know I just got out of the job search market and I had a lot of phone interviews and it was, it's taxing, man. It's taxing. It's the same questions over and over again. You know, what's a time when you felt like you had some difficult conversations with somebody in power? It's like, yo, do we need to spend 30 minutes on this? Like, you could have just sent me a list.
Exactly. It's always the same. And you'll hear it from different recruiters a little bit differently, but everyone kind of wants to know the same thing because everyone wants good talent. So it's kind of set up for them to use at will. Like, it's a good tool for that reason, because you want to ask everyone the same question, so you have a level playing field, and then you want to ask a bunch of people these questions, but you don't have the time to reach out to a bunch of people. So we give you that time back so that you can do so.
Yo, look at that. Time back. The most valuable currency you could possibly get, y'all. If y'all don't qualify yet, make sure you go check it out. Shout out the web address for them. Let them know where they can go find it, where they can log in and see, hey, let me save some time with Devin. He knows what he's doing.
It's Qualifi, QUALIFI.HR.
There it is. And I'm going to drop the link in the description for y'all too. So if you're the leader of a business or working at your company thinking, man, I'm sick of all these phone interviews, this is trash, you should qualify with Qualifi.
I like it.
There it is. That's free promotional for you right there, baby. I'm not even going to charge you. That's free. But all right, man. So getting back to your career, learn a little bit more about you. Let's focus a little bit on your background first. So can you please describe your ethnicity and where your hometown is?
So I'm a Black kid. I have a quarter of Filipino in me. Essentially, that's it. And then I'm from Avon, Indiana. Went to high school in Avon. Grew up in Oregon till I was in the 4th grade, and then I moved over to Indiana. Family is from Indiana and Louisiana primarily. So that's really, and a little bit in California too. That's kind of it.
Okay. So do you claim Oregon or do you claim Indiana?
Unfortunately, no. I would love to claim Oregon because it's just beautiful out there and like it's cooler in my opinion. But I claim Indiana now because I've been here for a minute. I've been here too long to not be claiming them. So I'm from Indiana. I still know how to get around in Oregon, so it's my second home type of thing.
Okay, that's cool. I was gonna say you don't want to claim the Ducks. You don't want to go out on a limb here and be like, yo, this is my fam.
I was 10 minutes from the stadium. Like that, I was like right there. Yeah, I lived in Eugene, which is where U of O is at. So
yeah,
that's home. I grew up running on that track. It's the most famous track in the world. I did meets every week there. Like that's my legacy.
Also, Devin is a track and field champion. For those of you who don't know, you can search that. You can Google his name. You'll find all the awards, all the teams, all that jazz on there, doing his thing. So I don't want to dive too deep into that because there's already lots of interviews and records and awards and things online. So let's focus more on the career here. But growing up in Indiana, really trying to learn about how to build a business. What were some of the academic things that you went through? How was school for you? Did you try to design your schedule in a way to where it would help you build a business, or were you just kind of like doing the normal track and wasn't even thinking about going into business?
I said I landed somewhere in between. So I tried at first to do that. Like I went into college knowing full well that I was not getting a job. Like I always told my mom that, never believed me. Like I told her I'm not doing it. Like
you've never had a job your entire life?
I've worked part-time, but I've never I've never had a full-time where I'm an employee at this company. So far in my head, I'm sticking to it. So, and I'm not against it anymore. Like that was a pride thing back then. I was like, I'm better than a job, like blah, blah, blah. It's a bunch of BS. Basically, I went in thinking I was going to do that. So I tried to align things around it, but it's near impossible your freshman year because all you're doing is taking gen eds. And so after that, when a friend of mine told me to consider supply chain management because we didn't have an entrepreneurship major at the time at Indiana State. And I was like, well, I want that. But he's like, this is going to be the closest kind of thinking, I guess. I really don't know if that's the truth to this day. I do think it was worthwhile for me to do that major, though, because I think it's the most challenging major there. And it probably has the best fallback plan of all the majors, in my opinion. So I did that. What it did give me was the ability to think a little differently, to think a lot of like process improvement and things like that. So it got me in that frame of thinking. But honestly, besides that, no, nothing about college has led to what today is. Like it didn't educate me on being an entrepreneur. What helped about college was all the people I met, all the experiences I got to have. Those, like all the connections you leave with, that's a different story. So while I was in college, I hung around the Cowork space there. And to this day, our company is a portfolio company of a studio that the lady that ran that Cowork space is now running this studio. So it's connections like that have, made this what it is. That's what I've probably taken away the most.
Can you break that down just a little bit more so people understand what that is? Because I'm sure there's people in high school right now that are like, what the hell is a co-work space? What is this man talking about?
Co-work space, like high level view, co-work space is where entrepreneurs will go to not buy office space. They'll all work in this one area, like open concept, and go work at a desk in this co-work space and just like pay a little bit a month so that they don't have to pay a lot for some office building. So that's how that works. And then you also get to meet a bunch of people in the co-work space. And then the studio is basically, the best way I can explain it is they're people that have been there, done that, and they are running this program now with a bunch of people like me that are new to this and kind of de-risking investments in us. So when we say hey, we're a next studio company, that means that you can trust us a little bit more because we have advisors that are successful. So that's what she's on. And then that's the bridge of the two, and kind of how I've been able to get somewhere with like college resources.
Cool. So you were part of this co-work space. You know, you've gone through, you're working through your degree, but also working here at the same time. And then kind of where do you pick up from there?
Yeah, so while I was there, basically my story is I went in this co-work space with no business idea. Got in there and I was like, hey, I'm gonna do marketing because that's what everyone does first. And then I never actually got off the ground, and that's also what a bunch of people do. And then I got collided with one of my track teammates. Me and him decided we were gonna start a food truck. And so while I was a junior in college, at the end of my junior year, we fully decided that we were going to do it. And then senior year, September, so the first month, we opened. And this is while I was running track too, which is the worst thing ever. But I wouldn't take it back. So basically, we ran this food truck for about 2 years, 1 year out of college full time. And then the next year, actually, during school, our last year of school, we worked for free, and then full time for the next 2 years. And that's how that went. And so that part is really where I learned to be an entrepreneur. And so during that whole time, we were leveraging we got to a point of like kind of being out of the truck. And so we started leveraging that time to learn. So Deshaun, my business partner, taught himself how to code. And now he's one of the founders on this Qualifi, you know. And then I had always been interested in technology, but I never learned how to code. I started learning how to design, and then just learning more about tech business, and just jumped right in. And now I'm obviously co-founder of Qualifi. So our path has been weird, but it's been a lot of just go. Like that's kind of our mantra, is like, if you're talking to me or Deshaun about an idea, we really don't want to talk about ideas, essentially, is what I'm trying to say. If you're not going to start it tomorrow, then we're not the right people to have a conversation with, because our whole thing is like, we didn't know how to operate the food truck equipment until we opened that day. Like we had never turned it on. So if you want to talk about people that just go, like, then you want to talk to us. If you don't, like, if you want to get it perfect and like ideate all day, we're not the people for you. So that's kind of been our thing. It's like we just go, and you know, we fix things later.
That's a gift and a curse, man. That's a gift and a curse right there, because like you're getting stuff done, you're making progress, but then at the same time, you don't know what you're doing at all. So you could definitely crash and burn very easily doing this, but that's like entrepreneurship in a nutshell. Like you're either gonna do it or not.
Exactly. Like we jump in, like even my brother's more cautious than me, but like when we get a new client that wants this service, he's like, well, you just do it. I was like, all right, fair enough. I'll figure it out. Like that's how it goes. Like, you know what I mean? Like if you think you have at least a little bit of skill, like the slightest bit of know-how, you'd be good. I think that's my personal opinion.
Yeah. If you're motivated, like if you're a motivated person and you're determined and you're not going to just like waver because of one hurdle that hits you, you should just go for whatever it is that you want to try and just try it, because you never know how it's going to end up, really. I mean, you can have a business.
If I'm talking to high schoolers, right? That's who this target is.
It's like sophomore year of high school to like seniors in college. So.
Okay. Yeah, that's the biggest advantage of age ever. Like, honestly, if I could have started earlier, I would, that's the one thing I'd tell myself. And like, that's what I would tell myself when I started junior year of college. Like, if I knew now what I know, I would start like sophomore year of high school, probably. Like, there's dudes that are just racking in cash as juniors in high school, and I've seen them personally, and it's insane. Because like at the end of the day, when I think about my learning, truly, college didn't really teach me anything else. Like honestly, like I just kept reading a book. Like, but at the end of the day, like in my head, I didn't really learn that much more. I developed over time, and like I'm still developing. But that's something that's going to happen regardless. So you might as well start the business. You know what I mean? You might as well get paid to develop. That's all I'm saying.
No, I agree 100%. That's exactly how this started. Like, really, I had an idea for, like a week. I was like, yo, nobody's doing this. Like, if I knew what I know now, like 10 years ago, I would have been on a completely different path than where I am now. But it's like, I still appreciate that journey. But if I had somebody telling me these things, somebody that looked like me, that sounded like me, that was giving me like real life examples of what they do on a day-to-day, it would have been hundreds of times more helpful than me having to go to school and, learn about, I don't know, Greek history that has nothing to do with what I'm doing today.
Yeah. I mean, like, just an example, like, when I start hiring for a marketer, I'm gonna start hiring for somebody that knows how to strategize around content, someone that can hack around like growth in LinkedIn, growth in, Facebook ads and like stuff like that, right? So true things that move the needle. I've not ever heard that in a marketing class in college, ever. So my thing is, you can learn that stuff on Udemy. You can learn that stuff on Google, YouTube. Like, I just think it's like crazy how much access we have now. And I just think the age will get lower and lower that people are starting like serious businesses. So if I was somebody at that age, like, I'm jumping in, because the coolest part about starting young is that it is for some reason, the most attractive thing to older people. Like, they love seeing it, investing in it, and they love to help. So if they invest with their time, like even that, like, that's the one thing I saw while we were in college more than anything. I was like, dang, these people like love that we started this in college, and everyone thinks it's amazing. So you might as well take advantage of like people thinking you're amazing for starting early. Like, everyone celebrates starting for some reason. So take advantage of it. Just finish. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's what I think, at least.
No, that's a great idea, man. It's very important for you to realize sort of what skills you have and then play to your strengths, right? Like, you don't want to always try to work on something that you have this grand idea for, but you're terrible at. Like, you guys didn't have any idea, but you just thought about like something that you both love, which is food. And it's like, all right, how do we make a business around this? Because we're good at eating food.
Not even that. It was literally, what is missing in this city? And we
Simple question.
We landed on a food truck, and that was it. That was the end of the story. We did not care if that it was food. I mean, I like food, don't get me wrong. Like, at the time, I really was like, this would be cool. Like, I wouldn't mind opening this. But honestly, the only reason we did it was because that nobody else was doing it. That's
all you need.
Yeah, it is. Like, you don't really have to know everything. Like, people get so hung up on that. Like, oh, I got to make sure I know this and that. Like, no, you need to make sure people are listening and that you have something to tell them. That's about it.
Yeah. Basically, like, add value. Like, add value to something. Like, find a weak point and add value, and you can make a business around that.
Exactly.
That's really what it comes down to.
That's hard. Like, nowadays, I probably overthink business ideas at this point. But like,
because you're old.
Yeah, honestly. Because like back in the day, I feel like I had some decent stuff. My stuff is trash. I'm glad I'm in one, because if I had to start something right now, the best I got is nothing good at all. So I rely on other people for ideas, and I'm like, let's do it, and I go in. So, either find that person or be the person that just is like out here looking at problems every day. Find the most skeptical person and just ask them what's wrong with everything. Just be creative and it'll come. Like, but at the end of the day, if it doesn't come, find something that's tried and true and just go do it. Like, people are hustling. Like, literally, you can go make $250 a day on Facebook Marketplace. Like, no problem. You can go to Amazon, put a picture of my friend was just telling about this. Put a picture of an Amazon product on Facebook Marketplace, and when it gets bought, go buy it with your Amazon Prime account and ship it to them. That's all you do. literally just printing money.
Yeah.
So there's tons of opportunities. It's just a matter of being willing to search.
Yeah, there's lots of businesses out there that I don't think people are aware of because like if I'm the person running this business, I'm not going to advertise it to a lot of people because I don't want competition. So that's rule number one. Like, don't generate more competition, just dominate your competition. So I'm not going to do that. But I mean, like you said, I think age plays a really big factor in this, in that it's really an advantage to you rather more than a disadvantage, because there's people are looking for that. 1, 2, your ideas are more fresh. Like, I've noticed that growing up through just even general like high school. Like, teachers are so close-minded to a lot of questions and things that you have because like they have their set thing of knowledge. This is what they know. This is what they live in. But as a young person, like, you're just trying to explore. Like, everything is a question to you. So you should just keep doing that. Like, keep living in those questions and then trying to generate new things from that, because that's real creativity. And getting out there and actually putting your foot down and trying to make progress is really, really key to actually getting something done. Like, you can think about it all day, but until you do it, nothing really comes out of it. So I think that's why they get so excited about young entrepreneurs, is because not only are they young, but they're like actually trying to do something. So you know they're motivated.
Yep. And they want to come right alongside of that every time.
And then they'll buy you out.
Yeah. I mean, there's some crazy thing. Like, Indiana has this group of like the high schoolers that they bring together for entrepreneurial things, and they make some crazy good stuff. Like, I'm just like, man, you guys are really solving problems, like super simple problems, but that's all you need. So I think people kind of, including myself, it's easy to overthink and like think this is probably too small of a problem. But to me, I'm like, what's the smallest problem you can solve? Because that's the cheapest one probably, and then you go do it, and then somehow it always ends up getting bigger. Like, when you solve one problem, they'll tell you the next problem, and it's like, oh, it just keeps getting bigger and bigger until I'm a millionaire.
Yeah, until that money gets bigger and bigger. That's the key.
So
I get it, man. I get it. So let's talk more about your career now. So we talked about how you got there and how you started your first business, which is Twisted Fry. Now then, how do you get from Twisted Fry to Qualifi?
So at Twisted Fry, I side hustled during the winter because we closed, because there was an outdoor food truck and nobody wants to be out there at that time. And so basically I worked for this in-home care company and I hired a ton of people. So I was always hiring because they always churn out after like 3 weeks. And so that's what my story was at the time. Darian, my brother, who's also my co-founder, he was in Indy at a high growth tech startup. And he was the first hire and led them all the way to like 70 people. So he was doing all the hiring for that for a long time until they hired somebody to do the hiring. And he found himself on the phone all the time. Like, he was like, I'm on the phone half my day at least, and I have other stuff I got to do, because he's more than a recruiter. He was just doing the recruiting. And so he called me and was like, I have this thought, like, and told me about basically what we built. He's like, I want to like basically have it ask them the questions for me. And I was like, yeah, that'd be nice, because I'm over here doing the same thing. And we just started doing it. Like, we were just talking about it for a while, and then me and Darian would sit, like, you know, we'd talk for an hour or FaceTime for an hour and start drawing things up, drawing like process flow maps and like how this would work, looking for like the technology that would help this work, start talking to people about it. And then eventually we're like, I just started designing it. And then I was like, okay, this is what it would look like. Here's what it, you know, we talked to one developer who didn't pan out, but he told us like what we could use. And then we're like, okay, well, we're ready to build this thing. And so I got with Deshaun. He was learning how to code at the time. I was like, do you want to start learning how to do this? And he was like, yeah. So he starts learning how to do it. But at the same time, we found a guy randomly through LinkedIn. We were just messaging people on LinkedIn cold. And we're like, hey, do you want to talk about this? Mine were all no's. Darian found one, and he's still with us today. That ended up being like top-notch developer. And he's kind of led us through this whole building the whole system. And Deshaun and him together has been a dynamic duo of developers for us. So it really just came together after we just kept doing things. So that's, again, like, I'm just like, I don't know. I'm just here at this point. Like, we've just kept taking steps. That's all we really did, is just keep walking. And then eventually you look up and you have a product, and then you have a sale, and then you have more sales, and then you raise some money, and it's real at that point. So, yeah, I think the story is we both had the problem in different ways. And then we just we wanted to solve it because it sounded worthwhile.
Yeah. I mean, just basically just seeing the next problem and solving the next problem, seeing the next problem, solving the next problem. And before you knew it, you were building a business, and now you're at where you are today. So, I mean, it sounds ridiculously simplified, obviously, because you're not talking about like the nitty gritty, like details of everything that goes into that. But
it isn't that, to be honest with you. It's for the person that doesn't build it, right? So I'm not the person that builds it. So let's start there. For the person who doesn't build it, it really isn't that it's not nitty gritty. Like, the nitty gritty part of it is like, what do you actually want it to do? Like, when I click this button, I want it to do this. All you do is draw this like really crappy prototype, like on paper. You just say, it'd be sweet if this big button here, when I click it, it does this, and then it goes to a page that does this, and that's it. And then you go find a developer, tell them your passion, tell them your why about it, get them bought into the idea, and then show them your crappy prototype. You know what I mean? So, like, get them bought in on why it's even a big opportunity. Your job is to explain why this is a great opportunity to anyone, like investor, customer, your team. That's always going to be your job. So that's what we need to focus on the non-technical side, is why is this a good opportunity and how? For the developer, their stuff is hard. So that's where they come into play. And that's why they're very well compensated. So I think it honestly is simple. It's just hard to like make it simple. Like, we make things hard on ourselves. It's hard to do it every day because doubt, like mostly because of doubt, to be honest. Like, your own head is what's going to tell you that this isn't going to work. Mine especially. So that's the hard stuff. But the logic of like, how do I actually design things out? Like, that's pretty simple, in my opinion.
Yeah, it seems pretty often, and if you look throughout history, like a lot of people who start businesses, they're just really, really dedicated to the process. Like, they're just very consistent, and they just keep pushing and keep pushing and keep pushing until it works. And there are stories where, that just doesn't work. The business just doesn't have value, but they pivot to something new, start a new business, and they keep the same mentality. And really, that mentality, I think, is what makes them successful. It's not, necessarily the metrics of the business. I mean, that's one thing, but the real key is them, is the person.
Well, for sure. Yeah, that's the thing. Like, we're early. I have no idea if this is going to work. I hope it does. But like, reality is it might not, and that's okay. Like, okay, like, what's, what I mean? Like, it's just a matter of being willing to do it again and again and again until you find one, and that is either a new business, or if that's like doing it again and again and again in your own, like, say it's Qualifi, like, try something. Every one of those fails. Am I willing to do it one more time? Basically, that's all it is. Like, am I willing to go do another cold call knowing I'm going to get hung up on? Yes. You know what I mean? So it's those things. Like, it's the little stuff, in my opinion.
I think moving forward here, that's a great point to transition onto, what's a typical day in the life like for an entrepreneur? Or at least for you.
Okay. I was going to say. For me, I wake up and I go, usually my first thing is like check my email.
Just like 4 a.m., 3 a.m., 5 a.m., 9 a.m.
I shoot for a 9 start.
Okay.
So basically, my biggest issue with that is I stay up and I play video games from time to time. It gets in the way of my wake ups. But anyways, first thing I look at is my calendar, because I'm day to day, seems like I'm always in meetings. And so that's first. And then email. And then if I have, a ton of emails, that's going to take me a lot of the day. But otherwise, I go look at the product roadmap, like all the things that we're building and kind of refining and defining for the development team. And then I spend a lot of my time like researching marketing and sales stuff. So I have like a learn daily folder on my favorites, and I go to like saleshacker.com and indiehackers.com. And so I go on there and look at like what people are up to, the content that's out there for sales and marketing, and try to find ideas. And then go on LinkedIn. I'm on LinkedIn a lot. Messages, like we have automated messages going out, so it's like always messages in my inbox. So I have those, and then most of the time I do that, and then I'm designing things. So it kind of varies. Like right now, my day in my life has been only focused on the client, essentially, in the meetings I have, because like that takes up my day. But like if I didn't have this client and we were just business as usual, I'd be doing the things I just said.
Okay, so for your specific role, not only are you the co-founder and you're trying to help build and run the business, but you're also doing a little bit of the designing side, not on the technical designing, but more the user experience and user interface.
Yeah, so I lead sales and product. It's kind of the simplest way to talk about it. I would say like right now I lead revenue, which means marketing, sales, product. Or not product, marketing and sales, and then I lead product. So on that end, I do like the whole product roadmap. What are we building? For what reason? How are we building it? Not the technical side, but like, how are we going to go about prioritizing things? Essentially, that's my job.
Yeah.
And then, and I don't do that without guidance. I have people that help me out a lot, but that, and then I'm like responsible for what's called user stories. So I don't know if you've heard of those, but basically you literally say, as a user, I want this so that I can this. And that's a user story. And so I write them all so that my dev team can make the product, essentially.
Yeah, got it. Man, that's a bit different, just knowing what you were doing before in college to what you're doing now. So it's so different.
It is. So one of the things I always skip on my development path, and I was exposed early. So my brother was in it, and as a sophomore, he was working at a tech company that helped, and then he put me on, like connected me to this internship opportunity in Indy. That's like the best internships you can get through a tech. It's called Techpoint. They're like a group in Indy. Mm-hmm. And they have this thing called Extern. And so I did that, and I worked for Angie's List as a product intern. And so I learned a ton about like what it looks like inside of a big tech company. And that was like, man, like the craziest thing about it is, I always tell people this, and I'm cautious, but this is the reality of what the situation was. And I'm not saying anybody did anything bad, but essentially Techpoint has a presence at Purdue, IU, Butler, DePaul, and Rose-Hulman, right? So they're at your career fairs and all that stuff. Like you're gonna know who they are if you go to the career fair. ISU, they are not anywhere near ISU, at least at the time when I was in college. So here's where my issue was, is that ISU is the #1 most diverse school in the state. Like, so you're talking about covering the gambit. I know ISU has a stigma. Obviously, you probably are aware of that stigma. So to me, it was like, oh, like you're avoiding ISU. So I had to go out of my way to find this. Like I was the only person from ISU. I was actually one of like, I don't know, 2 Black people in the program. So it was interesting to me. And they've done better now, but that's kind of just a fun fact that I'd like to share about like my opportunity opportunities and my growth, a lot of it stemmed from that, just being exposed. And so what I was saying about that is like the issue around like, you hear about talent shortage all the time. You hear about, oh, we can't find good people. Like these people like us don't even know this exists. Like literally like 90% of people like us probably don't even know these jobs exist, don't even know these companies exist because they fly in a certain circle. Like they're in a very tight knit group. And like until that spreads out, like there's going to be a talent shortage because you're only tapping into 10% of people. And so that's just something I always like to share, like to people watching, is like get exposed as much as you can, like learn about the tech ecosystem because it's a huge opportunity. Like when I was telling about user stories, that's the primary job of a person that is called a product owner. So they basically own a part of the product within a company and they write user stories, among other things, but they write user stories for their development team and they get paid $60K off the top, no doubt. And like, we don't even know those exist. They don't teach that in school. It's not something you major in. It's something you know about and you get into it. So if we know more, we can grow more. You know?
A word.
Little wordplay for you.
There it is. That's the moment. That's gonna be the 1 minute clip right there. Right there. That's the 1 minute clip. I got it.
Get one in there.
Oh man, no, that's a good point, man. I mean, honestly, I went to Rhodes and I had no idea that this program even existed. And I went to all the career fairs, never heard of them, never saw them. I hit every single company, never heard of them. So, I mean, it's really just about what you know. I mean, not what you know, but who you know, and not exactly what you know, because like you had a connection, and that's how you got linked up to them. But if you didn't have that internal connection, you would have never known. You'd have just been out here like the rest of us. So,
never. Ever. No doubt in my mind, I would not know. And I'm one of those people that goes and looks. I wouldn't know it. So.
Yeah. And actually, earlier on in the series, we had a couple user experience, UX UI people on here. And that program in general is one that I think a lot of people don't know about. They just don't know it exists. They've never heard of UX UI. They don't know. I mean, intuitively, it makes sense, right? Like somebody has to be thinking, wow, people don't like how this works. How can we make this better based on their responses? And how can we try to predict what's good for them based on some set of data or whatever? And then there's people who design it to make it work that way. And I mean, you think about that, but you never hear about those roles. You probably don't hear or see a lot of people that have those roles unless you live somewhere like California or like New York or Boston or some big tech-based area. But if you live in Indiana, if it's not corn, Eli Lilly, NASCAR, it's not there. It's not there. You're not gonna hear about it.
Yeah, it's wild. There's tons. I mean, there's tons of opportunities. Like tons. It's just nobody knows. And so the advantage is that if you do know now, you're at an advantage. I mean, you're early. So it's good for. I mean, take advantage of it. If you're early, that's great. Because it will, at some point, people will know. Like, it's not like it's going to be that way forever. But right now, that's the way it is.
Facts. Yeah, it's the same way with the Facebook businesses. I mean, everybody's trying to jump on that now because it's caught fire. But if you're one of those original people, you're making a lot of money right now.
Yeah.
You don't have to always outcompete people. Sometimes you just have to be first to the bunch. That's it.
Shoot. Be second. Be second. That is just as good. Like, if I'm Samsung, I'm not mad. Like, am I mad that I'm in second place? No, I'm not. I'm still doing very well.
Still gonna drop this $1,500 phone on y'all, and y'all gonna buy it. It's crazy. But that's great, man. Just a couple more questions I wanted to ask you. So, what would you say are a couple obstacles that you face in your career up to this point?
As much as like starting early is a great thing, not having got experience like on someone else's dime, that's definitely an obstacle. So, we have to experiment now with, I'm getting paid by my own company. So my experiment costs us money, if that makes sense. Like versus learning and growing underneath people. And, going the traditional route has its benefits. Like, you do learn from somebody who's been there, done that, and you're learning and experimenting on someone else's dime so that you can go and leverage that knowledge for yourself. At least that's how I would think of it. And so biggest obstacle for me has been one of that, like not getting, I guess, trained up, like skilled up through a specific trade. Like I kind of float. Like I'm like, what am I actually? I don't know. Like if I was to have to go get a job, I don't know exactly what I would do because I'm just like doing everything. Like I have to balance a lot of things. So that's been an obstacle. The other obstacle has been just in general, like fundraising. Like me and my brother talk about this a lot. And this is one of those things that I hope no one steals after hearing this. But essentially, we want to start at some point, like after we hit something big, we want to start this thing called fund called Friends and Family, because there's a gap. So when you're in a traditional tech startup, the first round that you always do is called the Friends and Family round, right? So you go raise a quick 100, 200K. Like I say quick, like, and I did this because that is not easy, right? But for some, that is very easy. And some is a specific set of people that's easier for, right? Because their network is just different. Like if you look at the racial wealth gap and all that stuff, like their network is built for this. Whereas our network is not designed to raise that kind of money. Like it just isn't, because of how society has been over the last 100 years. Like we don't have that kind of money in our African Americans do not have that kind of money, essentially, statistically speaking. I don't come from money that can just give you that. I come from a good home. Like I come from a good place, comfortable, everything, but we can't just do that. So our goal is and this is the obstacle, has been that round is tough. Like raising that kind of money quick enough to where we need it has been a super big obstacle. We've only been able to grow at almost like a controlled rate because we haven't been able to pour the fuel on the fire that's what the money is for. And so that's why we want to start that, because I think there is a lot of talent, like a lot of people that are could do something great, but don't have that network. And so that's been our challenge. Not to say it's like, we're probably of like Black founders, we're probably some of the more, like our network's probably the stronger of it, but it still can't do that. Like, no way. Like there's just people we don't know. Like, we don't have a person that can just be like, yeah, I know this person, he gave me like 200K because he believed in me. Like, no. We don't have those.
Yeah, that's so true.
Yeah, that's been an obstacle for sure. Not the worst obstacle in the world, but it's been one. And it's been a learning experience trying to navigate the water. Because if you're not going to friends and family, you're going traditional, and then they want to see certain things that we just don't have. Like certain traction and things like that the reason they expect that is because typically someone has raised a friends and family round to make some hires to hit some metrics. Well, when you can't raise the friends and family round, you have to bootstrap, your metrics look a lot different. And so the system is a little bit designed to one set of people, and it's broken in my opinion. So that's kind of been interesting to navigate.
It's something that I think all Black and brown entrepreneurs have to navigate very carefully, because like you said, that money is just not typically just open for them to take. They have to either bootstrap or go kind of finagle around a bit to try to get that money some way, in some fashion. And it's tough.
It is tough. It's defeating, because what happens is you get a lot of no's, and it makes you feel like you have a bad idea. And the reality is maybe your path just looks a little different. And I think that's what our reality is. Like our path is just different than theirs. Like maybe we aren't going to hit, maybe our year 1, 2, and 3 are going to be slower than theirs, because that's when you're usually doing your friends and family stuff. And that's okay. Like I'm learning what it looks like to be me in this world. I'm not saying it's an excuse at all. Like to those investors that have invested in us, and I mean, there are there are traditional investors that have invested, and they did it for the right reasons because they see the value of the product. And so for those, I give them kudos. But I think the reality is, like, it's pretty uncomfortable for us. Like, we'll go into rooms with, 30 people that look nothing like us, not one of them. And so you just kind of walk in, you have that thought, and you're like, oh boy.
All right. Make sure this tie is right.
Yeah, I hate that it's true, but it is just a thought that crosses my mind naturally. So it's an interesting situation. I wouldn't necessarily say it's fully a disadvantage. It is definitely a hurdle, but I think it makes us a lot stronger as founders. Like, we are resilient. If we make it through this, like, we're very resilient, resourceful, like all the skills that you want to have, scrappy. We get all those skills by default, essentially. So we don't get to rest. We just don't get to rely on stacks. Like, that's just not what we get. Like, we have to figure it out on our own. And that's just, I think it's better sometimes.
Yeah, no, I remember my brother started his business, was it 2 years ago? I think 1 or 2 years ago. But originally when he came to us with the idea, I was like, dude, I see no POC, proof of concept, and I see like very minimal revenue right now. So how am I supposed to give you any of my minimal revenue when you don't have any revenue? And he was just like, look, man, I'm trying. I'm out here trying to do this. I don't have no network, right? Our family is not well off. We don't have a ton of money to give like some people. And he was just like, this is what I got. I gave him $50 and he was like, all right, I'm cool with that. I'll take it. That's a drop in the bucket in terms, not even a drop in the bucket when it comes to like investing.
That evaporated.
Exactly. As soon as that money hit his hand, it was gone, basically. But I mean, it's those little things that, I mean, you really do need to have those moments, I think, if you're going to build a business, because it helps you prepare for, when you do go to these traditional investors and you ask them for money, if they were to say, like, why do I value your business? Like, why should I invest my money? You've had a lot of extensive experience going through this and saying, like, this is why I bring value. This is the problem I'm solving. This is how we're going to grow in X amount of years. And by doing that, you really get a lot of practice ahead of time. So I agree completely with you. You're built differently from the beginning is how I like to put it.
Yeah, no, for sure. You have to be.
For sure. So with that, what would you say is one misconception that people have about you, or entrepreneurs?
We probably touched on a few of my like general misconceptions, but my one that I usually go with is like ideas. Like, having a great idea is like literally like a waste of time, in my opinion. Like, people focus a lot on that, and like, it's important to have something that is going to sell, yes, but like spending more than like, I don't know, just if I talk to you this week and I'm like, you tell me you have this idea, then I go back to you next week and like, yeah, I've been thinking about this idea, like, been thinking about this idea a lot. You have lost me. Like, that is where I draw the line. Like, if I talk to you about an idea twice, there's my misconception. We should not have a conversation twice about an idea. You should have acted on it. So my big thing is like, ideas are worthless, execution is everything. Like, if you're not moving and learn, like, you will figure out what's right as you make the steps. So that's my big one. The big misconception is that people just like hit it big one day, like, oh, I just exited for $1 billion randomly. Like, no.
Could be tomorrow for you. You don't know that.
It won't be, but it could be. The misconception is that they weren't, they were executing for years, likely. And so you just see certain things in the media. You only see the beginning and the end. That's like, you see when they raise money and you see when they exit, but you don't see the middle. And so the middle is where all the dirt. I mean, that's where all the good stuff is at. Like all the stuff you really need to know is in the middle, basically, is what I'm saying. So pay attention to the middle.
True, man. It's like a sandwich. Nobody wants the buns. They want the meat. Come on, man. Come on. They want what's inside. They don't want the outside. Come on.
That's true. It's a good point.
There you go. You can use that in your next motivational meeting with the team. It's like, hey guys, we're like a sandwich right now. All right, we're in the middle. We're the good point.
We're right here. We're at first point, literally. I think that's my biggest one, probably. And I also don't think like there's another misconception about like late nights and all that stuff. Like I don't think it has to be that. I think you just need to carve out some time in your day. Like literally 2 hours can go a long way if you are just willing to do something every day. I think that's more important than like telling yourself, oh, I'm gonna stay up late and do this. I'm gonna stay up late and think about my idea. Like no, I'm gonna take 2 hours a day and I'm gonna execute on something, and that's it. And you see how long, like, see how far that gets you, because eventually it'll do something that makes you want to do it for 3 hours a day, and then 4 hours, and then 5, and then full time, essentially.
It's a slippery slope. Once you get started, all your attention usually just ends up on that one thing. It's the same with working out. 15 minutes a day turns to 45 turns to 2 hours.
Yep.
If you're going past 2 hours, you're wasting your time, honestly, but it's similar thing. But yeah, I think you've added a lot of nuggets of gold, a lot of advice for all the youths out there. So with that, I think it's just best we close it down, man. Do you have any closing thoughts? Any shout outs you want to give? Shout out to the moms, pops, your brother, wife, anybody out there.
You just did them all for me, so I'll echo all those.
Nah, it's got to come from you. It's got to come from you.
Shout out to all my business partners, for one. Wouldn't be doing this without you guys. And then obviously my wife, which is cool to say because I haven't said that much, like my wife. So shout out to her. And then my parents obviously like paved the way for who I am today. And then shout out to literally every person who's come in contact with me about this business. You've been helpful, whether you said no or yes, has been helpful. So that's mainly it. The things that are important to me that people realize is I'm here to help, for one. So you can put my you can put my email in the description, whatever. Reach out. Every time I tell people to reach out, they never do. They say they will, they never do. So that's one. And then just keep walking. Like literally walk. You don't have to run. You don't have to jog. Just walk. For me, that's been like the most rewarding thing to look at. Literally, I just thinking about this today is like, I just didn't stop, and like we're seeing the result of that. Like we're truly seeing a result of just not stopping, just not giving up. And I didn't think that was like a thing until it becomes a thing, and you're like, wow, like things start falling in your lap when you're just like putting your energy into something, and I don't know, it just aligns. So just keep executing, and things will happen, whether this business for me works out or not. Like I'm gonna land somewhere better than where I am today just because I kept going. So that's it.
Exactly. In the words of Diddy, can't stop, won't stop. We're gonna keep it rocking forever. So thank you for tuning in once again, guys. We appreciate you watching. Big shout out and thanks to Devin for coming on the platform and sharing all these nuggets of gold and wisdom for y'all. And make sure you check out all the links in the description. Like I said, he offered up his email address, so it's there. It's in the description. If you guys want to contact him, reach out to him there. You can reach out to him on LinkedIn. Either of those two platforms, you can basically get a hold of him and ask him as many questions as you want to with some restraint. But that's a resource for you guys that we didn't have necessarily growing up. So all kudos for that. And check out some of the other links down there. There's going to be a personality test. You can figure out what kind of personality you are and how that matches up with different jobs. There's a career placement test. You can figure out, all right, I know I like playing video games, but can I make money off of this? Like all little things like that. There's different internships, externships, paid research programs that you can do. So check that all check that out all down in the description, and just drop us a comment. Let us know what you think. Did you get any wisdom from Devin today? Do you feel like you've been blessed by the Most High? What's your thoughts? What's your feelings? Do you like my tie? Are you rocking with the tie? You like the hair? What are you thinking about, man? Just drop us a little bit in the comments. Let us know, all right? So with that, I got to remind you guys also, like, comment, subscribe to the channel, because we don't want you to miss out on any of this great stuff. And we'll see you guys next Monday, as always, with another episode of the #BlackProfessionals Project. And with that, we are out.